Now I'm living at Keith's house. Episode 1. Actually, it was Keith's mum and dad's house, 38 Grace Gardens, Bishop Stortford, Hertfordshire. This is probably the view that greeted Doug and Maisie in the autumn of 1955, along with a 7-year-old Keith and his little brother Greg. Their first view of a brand new home on a brand new housing estate. Built by a local builder, Boyd Gibbons, who strangely enough saved himself from bankruptcy with the sale of these very homes. And Grace Gardens was named after one of his lady friends. Anyway, like many others in the 1950s, Doug and Maisie moved their little family out of London to the countryside. This was the start of our lives in this part of the world. That was the first of many profound statements from Keith himself. They viewed the home on a beautiful day just like this. Here's a drawing I found in Keith's attic from the early 1960s of their home. It was very light and very southern, Keith tells me. We used to sit out on the front, Mum and Dad with a G&T. It was a bit like the deep southern mansions, sitting on the verandas, watching the sun go down. I guess Keith hasn't visited the deep south, but he has a good imagination. I was looking forward to living here. I mean, things couldn't get any worse for me, could they? Of course, when Keith's family first viewed their home, they were probably greeted with the aroma of fresh coffee or a baking cake. Keith had not arranged such a treat for me, no, but instead I was greeted by the smell of death, a raw, rancid, decomposing squirrel sprawled out on the front door mat. This quickly introduced me to Keith's shed, his spade, his neighbour, as I scooped this poor squirrel over the fence into next door's garden. It's time to enter Keith's house. That blur is Haggis. He's already seen inside, and he's making a quick exit. Maybe I should have listened to my friends. Richard, why do you want to go and live at Keith's house? Don't you know he ain't got no running hot water and no central heating? Are you mad? I was offended. I was not mad, just desperate. Besides, Keith was my friend, and I was going to live here virtually rent-free. Keith's mum and dad, Doug and Maisie, died a while ago, and Greg left the nest and married a long time ago too. Keith is a long-term bachelor, and still living at his mum and dad's house. He's been coming in through this front door as a single person for over 50 years, and in the past few years, to an empty, quiet home. It seems odd then that Keith is greeted by this Gauguin painting, copied by his brother Greg in his late teens while he was cutting his teeth as an artist. Why do I say odd? Because, do you know, Gauguin titled this painting, "When Will I Be Married?" A subliminal reminder, maybe? Keith may be oblivious to the title, but he certainly would like a girlfriend, and to marry. Even though he's nearly 60, the feelings don't disappear, so I'm told. Doug was an architect, and panelled out this hall and covered over the glass bricks that you saw outside. There is another of Greg's paintings, a semi-abstract of a dark forest. Keith describes this as Greg's middle period, when he was finding his feet as an artist. A selection of Maisie's possessions. Her poems, a pebble, and her prized possession of a paperweight. And also an old photo that has Keith's grandmother in it. All sit exactly where Maisie left them before she died. Do you remember the Festival of Britain? It was held at the South Bank in London, 1951. Keith likes to call it Britain Can Make It. Well, this chair is from it. The Festival of Britain was an attempt to give Britons a feeling of recovery and progress after all the bomb damage from World War II. It hoped to promote better quality in British design. I think we may be well overdue for another one of those. What do you think? By the way, did you know it's harder to come up with a new design for a chair than it is for a house? I leave you flabbergasted, I can sense. We were a bookish family, Keith tells me. Yeah, books. There may be only a few here, but it's preparing you as we explore the rest of the house. Keith is a true bookworm. He left school in the mid-60s and then became an omnivorous reader. Now he knows I don't know what that means, and I'm not even going to bother looking it up in the dictionary. He eats books, trust me, that's all it can mean. Author Aldous Huxley, now his 1932 book, Brave New World, was on the top of this pile, but I've nicked it to read. This is where Keith's sci-fi reading began. By the way, the binoculars were Maisie's. Daughter of a farmer, raised on a farm in Lincolnshire, she loved nature and became a twitcher. That's a bird watcher to you city dwellers. She mainly used the binoculars for observing nature, Keith mentions. Mainly? I'm interested in the other bit of observing that she could have done. Not from the Festival of Britain, or Britain Can Make It Expo, is this magazine rack. And Phyllis? Not in Britain anymore. An old family friend who emigrated to Australia when Britain couldn't make it anymore. Moving along Doug's famous 1960s wooden panelling, we come across Keith's grandmother again. Excuse the cobwebs. As a young, attractive woman, Keith starts to tell me, when a bachelor of 59 describes an attractive woman, you know there's a scandal lurking. A scandal indeed. She eloped with Keith's grandfather way back in 1910. Then that was the stuff of a Jane Austen novel. Those hats are Keith's. I asked Keith why he wore hats. Just for posing, really. This is a cricket hat. His dad wore hats too. You won't know this, but Keith was named after a famous cricketer whom his dad loved. Keith Miller. Keith Miller was a famous Aussie Test cricketer and a Second World War pilot. Keith Miller was regarded as Australia's greatest ever all-rounder cricketer. Now he played in London around the time that our Keith was born. He was a crowd favourite because of his ability, reverent manner, good looks, known as Golden Boy or the Nugget. Our Keith is not known as Golden Boy or the Nugget. He says, I never took up cricket, but my brother Greg did. He was a great cricketer, and I was a great disappointment to Dad. Well, let's go and have a look in Golden Boy's lounge and see if we can find any little nuggets.